Welcome on into a Big East Shootaround update, everybody. John Fanta checking in from our Big East New York City studios with the latest on the conference. First and foremost, a strong weekend for the Big East. A couple of move-the-needle non-conference victories for this league. You start Friday night with Butler defeating SMU at Hinkle Fieldhouse. They had 6 in double figures. They knocked down 12 threes. Jameel Telford stepped up, and for a Butler team that had an early loss to Austin Peay, this was important for them. I think the win of the year in the Big East thus far comes from Marquette. Marquette going to College Park and beating a Maryland team who I think is a top 25, 30-ish team. Cam Jones had 28 points in the game. Stevie Mitchell scored the final 8 points for the Marquette Golden Eagles. Mitchell is just a Swiss Army knife. He epitomizes what Shaka Smart's program is all about. And as for Cam Jones, right now there is no guard in the country playing better basketball than Cam Jones. There might not be a player in the country, and if there is a player, he actually comes from a school out in Omaha. We're going to get to him shortly. But Cam Jones is just on fire right now. To be averaging around 23, 24 points per game, 5 and 4 per game, in the assist column, notching about 5 assists per game. What he's able to do for this Marquette team, he drives the bus. And then they had Royce Parham step up on Friday night. Caden Hamilton's shown some moments. David Joplin, he's had some big games here early on in the season. Shaka Smart has a roster rooted in continuity. And for Marquette to go to Maryland, and Derek Queen had a huge night, and the Terps put up a strong fight late, got within a bucket. It showed resolve, it showed experience, and it showed the benefits of that continuity this time of year. Marquette can be another second weekend team in the NCAA tournament. Remember last year, that was their first appearance in the Sweet 16 in over a decade. What Shaka has built is special. You flash forward to Saturday, Xavier. Xavier didn't just beat Wake Forest. They commanded Wake, wire to wire. A Wake Forest team that beat Michigan the week previous to that. So for Xavier, it's a big performance. And for Ryan Conwell, it's a validation of what we were saying in the preseason. That is, Ryan Conwell's one of the best players potentially in this league. How about Zach Fremantle? He's my highlight of the week. Behind the back and then all the way in for a finish at the Cintas Center that sent the place on fire. The Musketeers have a couple of things going for them. One, they've got depth. They've got a lot of depth. I mean, Marcus Foster started the game off strong, and then you can have Conwell take over for a little bit. Davion McKnight is so efficient for the Musketeers. That front court, even though they lost Traore for the season with an injury, it's still dynamic enough and experienced enough to make plays. And they've got one of the best coaches in America. So that's a really good win for X. We're going to learn more about them at the Fort Myers tip-off next week when they face South Carolina. And they could have Michigan in that or Virginia Tech. But the point is, the Musketeers are back. And to me, they're a top 25 team, even though they're not in the AP top 25 quite yet. I think they're that good. And then Sunday, St. John's. They make a statement of their own. 85-71, the Red Storm beating New Mexico in the Patino family reunion. For St. John's to get that win, it's key. And R.J. Lewis was phenomenal. 21 points. 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Kadari Richmond pours in 14, 8, and 5 assists. What St. John's is so special at is they come at you in waves. It could be Davon Smith for 3 or 4 minutes. It could be Kadari Richmond for 3 or 4 minutes. R.J. Lewis had some takeover time. Zubi Ejiofor stepped up big. This team has options. Sound familiar with Xavier? It's one of the strengths of a couple of these teams trying to have a bounce-back year. For St. John's and Xavier, the standard is, let's go dancing. They both look like teams that could do that. I think St. John's is a top 20 team. They're ranked 20th in my Fox College Hoops top 25. One of 5 Big East teams ranked in the top 20 this week. Yeah, this league is performing. Speaking of performances, let's go to Star Watch here on Shootaround. The Stars are hooping. We begin with Ryan Kalkbrenner. Folks, the numbers that this kid is putting up, unbelievable. I mean, first you start off the season with 49 points. But right now, what he is doing for this Creighton team, and we're going to get more of a glimpse of it at the Players Era Festival next week, but guys that average about 25, 26 a game and 9 rebounds a game, I don't care what stage of the season you're at, they don't grow on trees. And Ryan Kalkbrenner is just special. Somebody said to me earlier this week that well, he's a big friendly giant, so he doesn't always get the love and attention that he deserves because he's not this fierce, in-your-face. Well, first off, he's as good of a defender as there is in college basketball. And don't let the niceness of Kalkbrenner the zookeeper fool you. As we learned last week, he loves the zoo, he loves animals. This guy has a zookeeper Kevin James personality, if you will, but with a fierceness that is one of the best players in the country. And what he is doing for Creighton gives them Final Four hope. Hope. Not saying that they're going to the Final Four, but he makes them a team that can get there because he stops everything. And then the guard play of Stephen Ashworth, Pop Isaacs, Jemiah Neal. Look out. Look out for what Creighton can be because of Kalkbrenner. Cam Jones is star number 2 for reasons listed before in this show. An absolute bucket, a microwave scorer. He's got the swag as well, being the fashion expert that he is. But this kid just generates so much for Marquette. Maryland left him open a couple times. Maryland then tried to double him a couple times. Maryland tried everything. Didn't work. Kevin Willard will be waking up in the middle of the night thinking about, how do I stop Cam Jones? It's a good thing Cam Jones isn't in the Big Ten. He's in the Big East. That's scary for the rest of this league. And then we go to Alex Karaban. Alex Karaban is just Mr. Steady. That's what makes Alex Karaban so great. And the Connecticut Huskies, unbeaten on the early season. This is a team that we're going to find out more about them in the Maui Invitational next week. This was Dan Hurley's design. Let's start with 4 games that are bye games, that are games that we should be able to find out personnel, rotations, just work out the kinks and figure some things out. But what you don't have to figure out is that Alex Karaban is one of the most dynamic players in the country. He's an automatic shot maker. When that shot's on, good night. He's passing the ball better this year. He really is. He gets on the glass, and you can count on him every time he goes out there for 15 to 18 points per game, sometimes more. But I think sometimes what happens with UConn is we're talking about Liam McNeely, and we're talking about Hassan Diarra. We're talking about Aiden Mahaney, who hasn't figured it out fully yet. He's got to, I think, for UConn to get to where they want to go. Solo ball, right? Jaden Ross, who, by the way, I think has NBA potential. I love Jaden Ross. What happens with UConn is sometimes we don't give the individual accolade because they're so great as a team, as a whole. Give Alex Karaban his flowers. He is really special. There is your Star Watch. It is time to go BE feasting. Let's feast here. And what's coming up, we got 7 teams that are going to be heading to different Thanksgiving tournaments. A couple of the spotlight things I'm looking at Thursday night. Top 25 showdown in the Baha Mar Hoops Classic. St. John's will be taking on Baylor. Baylor has one of the best freshmen in the country, VJ Edgecombe. They've got Jeremy Roach, the Duke transfer. St. John's counters with their guards and their depth. One of the keys to the game in my mind is just Kadari Richmond, Davon Smith, RJ Lewis being able to manage, avoid turnovers, don't let Baylor run. If you let Baylor run, you're going to be in for a problematic night. And then Zuby Ejiofor going up against Norchad Omier. You might remember the name Omier, especially you UConn fans, because when Miami made the Final Four, Omier was a big reason for it. Big front court matchup Thursday night. Johnny's in the Baha Mar Hoops Classic. They get either Tennessee or Virginia in the second game, and then they get Georgia on Sunday in a game that's not in that event. But Georgia, an interesting team with a couple of key pieces, and Mike White could have a tournament team. Asa Newell is one of the best freshmen in America. So for the Johnnies, 3 important games down in the Bahamas as Rick Pitino works on his tan. Also Thursday night in the Charleston Classic, Seton Hall gets going, taking on VCU. VCU, one of the favorites in the Atlantic 10. The Pirates coming off allowing just 28 points against Wagner over the weekend. It was their lowest total that they've allowed since the late 1940s. Top 10 KenPom defenses, both Seton Hall and VCU. That is your Thursday night. Then we roll on with the remainder of the weekend. We go around to some different events. UConn. Connecticut will be in the Maui Invitational then next Monday. 2:30 Eastern time against Memphis. Memphis has a bucket and P.J. Haggerty. They got Penny Hardaway on the sidelines. Connecticut comes at you in waves. I like the Huskies in that game. I think they have too much for Memphis. In Game 2 of the Maui Invitational, it's Michigan State or Colorado. UConn's better than both those teams. The final of the Maui could be a tremendous feast week game. Outstanding. UConn could end up getting any of Iowa State, top 10 team, Auburn, top 5 team, North Carolina, top 10 team, or Dayton, if they made a magical run, which Dayton has done that before. Obi Toppin appreciators will remember that. But for UConn, Big Maui Invitational for them, it is the marquee event of Feast Week again. And for the Huskies, they can win this event. I think they make the final. And for them making the final, then you play a marquee team, you find out about yourselves. It's a good thing for Connecticut. We know in December they have several marquee games. Baylor in the battle at Texas, Gonzaga on Fox Primetime Hoops as well. Monday night as well, Xavier will take on South Carolina. Fort Myers tip-off. Musketeers going up against the Gamecocks team that was picked in the back half of the SEC, but a team that had a really nice year last season. For Xavier, I think a potential final with Michigan would be interesting from the standpoint of Zach Fremantle, Jerome Hunter going up against Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf of Michigan in the front court. I think that would be really interesting. And then you have Donaldson for the Wolverines on one side, Davion McKnight for the Musketeers. So that is the Fort Myers event. Providence is in Atlantis. The Friars are going to face Oklahoma. It's a very manageable first game. The big question with Providence is, when is Bryce Hopkins going to come back? My gut, my intuition says what Kim English told me in the preseason, the goal is for Bryce to play in Atlantis. I just think that things are tracking for him to do that. We'll see what happens. We don't have anything official from the Friars, but if Bryce Hopkins is on the floor, Providence can make a run in Atlantis. You hope that you beat Oklahoma so you get a second game against Arizona. See, that's the thing, folks. What people don't realize, you accumulate bids this time of year. You accumulate NCAA tournament bids this time of year if you get move the needle wins. Butler is out in Arizona. They're going to play Northwestern Thanksgiving night. The Wildcats, Nick Martinelli's been great. You know, Butler, they're going to need their perimeter shooting. They hit 12 threes in the win over SMU. They need Jameel Telfort and Pierre Brooks to play bully ball. Colby King's got to give them enough. Patrick McCaffrey's experience has been really good for this Butler team. So look out for that here. I think that's going to be an important element to what they end up doing. So you got Xavier. You've got Butler. You've got Marquette elected to not play in a Feast Week event because they've loaded up their schedule. How about the Creighton Blue Jays? There are other team to watch in multi-team events. The Blue Jays are in the first ever Players Era Festival. It will begin next Tuesday on TBS when they meet San Diego State. They'll then meet Texas A&M. I think for Creighton, the key is simple. What do they get from the 2, 3, and 4 slots? Stephen Ashworth is so steady at point. Ryan Kalkbrenner's there. Look out for Jackson McAndrew. We'll get to him in a second. But I think for Creighton, very manageable opportunity. The two opportunities they've got. A&M's around a top 25 team. I think Creighton's more of a top 10 to 15 team. If you limit the pieces around Wade Taylor, the All-American, you can be in a good place. Creighton could get Houston. They could get Alabama. They're facing Alabama in Tuscaloosa December the 14th. But they could get Alabama twice here. So they could get them in the Players Era Festival. So there you go with your feasting across the Big East. So many marquee events. The next 10 days are a hoop lover's dream. As we get to our final buzzer here on Big East Shootaround, we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and I'm going to give you what you need to look out for elsewhere in the conference here. Here is our final buzzer in the Big East. Number 1, Hinkle Fieldhouse. Have you seen Caitlin Clark, Tyrese Halliburton? It's been celebrity row there at Hinkle. Yeah, a little bit of magic against SMU. We like to see that. Number 2, big men on campus. I'm talking about Tommy Sorber, Tommy Boy. He's off to a strong start to his career. Will be one of the best freshmen in the country. How about Jackson McAndrew for Creighton? Love his versatility. Fits into Greg McDermott's system. And how about Liam McNeely, Big East Freshman of the Week? I think this kid is a lottery pick. I think he's a top 10 pick. He is so smart. He is so savvy. Villanova, big game against Maryland on Sunday at the Prudential Center. Obviously, it's been a tough start to the season, but Eric Dixon's a bucket. Folks, his volume, his scoring, he's going to continue to drive the bus for Villanova. Is DePaul back? DePaul could be back. We have to see what can happen here when they go to Texas Tech and they play the Red Raiders. But this is a great start to the year. Why? Point guard play with Connor Emright. Isaiah Rivera's been fantastic. Chris Holtman, really like what he is doing here. The Blue Demons have a lot of pieces. And finally, my Thanksgiving side dish that I can't live without, it's got to be mashed potatoes. Enjoy your turkey day.